My grandmother was not afraid of much. She'd stand on the porch through a thunderstorm that had the whole hillside rattling and never so much as blink. But there was one sound that could stop her cold. 3 knocks at the door, slow, even spaced apart, when there was nobody on the other side of it. She called it the death knock. And the one time I heard it myself, in my own house, with my own ears, I will tell you exactly what came after. That's number 10. We'll get there. Because before the telephone, before the hospital was an hour down a paved road, the old folks watched for these. 10 signs that death was making its way toward the house, so a family had time to be ready. Some of them will raise the hair on your arms. And I'll bet you a shiny penny you felt at least one of them yourself and never told a soul. Keep count. Number 1. A dog howling in the night, not barking. Any dog will bark at a possum. I mean howling. That long, low, mournful sound in the dead of night, aimed at nothing you can see. The old folks believed a dog could smell death coming before it arrived, and that the howl was the dog telling you so. There was a reading to it, the way there always was. A dog that howled once and quit, you could let be. But a dog that howled 3 times, right in a row, outside a house where somebody was already sick. That was the one that emptied the room of conversation. In my town, when a dog carried on like that outside a certain window, the neighbours didn't ask who was ailing. They already knew. They just started cooking, so the family would have something to eat when the time came. Number 2. An owl calling by day. An owl at night is just an owl doing its job. But an owl that calls in the daytime, or one that comes and settles on your roof and calls after dark, right over your head, that was a messenger, and not the kind you wanted. The old line was that if an owl called your name, you had best not answer it. Because the owl lived with 1 foot in this world and 1 foot in the next, and it only came close to a house when it had reason to. My grandmother would hear one near the eaves and go quiet, and touch the horseshoe over the door on her way past. She wouldn't tell you why. She'd just touch it. Number 3. A single crow on the chimney. Not a whole noisy flock of them out in the field. 1. 1 crow, alone, come to sit on your chimney or your roof peak, looking down, taking its time. You know the old counting rhyme, 1 for sorrow? Well, 1 crow was the one they counted, and 1 crow was sorrow come to call. And it mattered where it sat. On the chimney was the worst of all, because the chimney was the way in and the way out of a house. The smoke went up it, and the old folks believed a soul could go up it too. A crow perched right over that opening, peering down into your home, was thought to be waiting. Just waiting. Number 4. A bird striking the window. This is the one everybody's felt. You're sitting in your kitchen and a bird flies hard into the glass. Thump. Or worse, it comes back, tapping, trying to get in. The old belief is grim. A bird at the window was a soul at the glass. Death, knocking, asking to be let inside. But I'll tell you what that same sign meant in my family, and it was not death at all. It was the opposite. My mother, years before she knew she was carrying me, had a little bird come to the kitchen window 3 mornings running. Tap, tap, tap. And my grandmother, her mother, didn't go pale. She smiled. She said, "That's not death at the glass, child. That's a life on its way in. That's a new little soul knocking to come home." A few weeks later, my mother learned she was expecting me. And it wasn't only her. The women in my family all knew that bird. My aunts got the very same knock at the window before any of them had a reason to count the weeks, before a doctor could tell them a thing. So in most houses in this country, a bird at the glass was something to dread. In ours, we'd look up and smile and start wondering out loud which one of us was expecting. 1 sign, 2 families, 2 meanings, a whole world apart. Tell me, down in the comments, which one it was in yours, the knock you feared or the knock you welcomed. That's the animals, the dog, the owl, the crow, the bird at the glass. Now we go inside. Because the old folks believed the house itself would tell you, if you were paying attention. Number 5. A picture falling off the wall on its own. A framed photograph, hanging where it's hung for 20 years, comes off the wall all by itself. No door slammed, no truck rumbled by. It just falls. And if it was a photograph of a particular person, the old belief was that that person was the one being called. Especially if they lived somewhere far off, where you couldn't lay eyes on them to be sure they were all right. My grandmother hung her pictures on good nails, hammered deep, and she checked them. Not because she was tidy. Because a picture had no business coming down on its own, and if one did, she wanted to know that very second whose face it was. Number 6. A clock that stops by itself. You've heard of this one in the old songs. A clock that had ticked faithfully for 50 years stops short at one particular hour and never runs right again. And the hour it stopped was said to be the very moment a soul left the world. Here's the part I didn't understand as a girl. Whenever word reached our house that someone had passed, my grandmother would go from room to room and stop every clock we owned. With her own hand. She'd open the case and still the pendulum, and then she'd cover the face of it with a cloth. I thought it was the strangest, gloomiest thing. I asked her once why on earth she'd stop a perfectly good clock. I understood it years later, long after she was gone. She wasn't afraid of the clocks. She was honouring the hour. You stopped time in the house to mark the exact moment that soul left. You held it still, out of respect. And then, after the burial, you started every clock again to tell the house that life goes on now. It was never fear. It was one of the tenderest things she did, and it took me half my life to see it. Number 7. The Death Watch beetle. This one you have to be in an old house to know. Late at night, in the deep quiet, you hear it. A small, dry, ticking sound coming from inside the wall. Tick, tick. Like a little clock hidden in the timber. It's a beetle, a real one, tapping its head against the old wood. But sit up all night at the bedside of somebody you love, in a silent house, and listen to that tiny tick counting away in the wall beside you. The old folks called it the Death Watch for a reason. It sounded, for all the world, like something patient, keeping time, waiting for the hour. And that's exactly where the name comes from. In the old days, when a person was very ill, the family didn't leave them alone. Somebody sat with them through the dark, hour after hour. That was called keeping the death watch. And in those long, quiet hours, with the lamp turned low and everyone else asleep, that little tick in the timber was often the only sound in the whole house. So of course they came to believe it was counting. When you've got nothing to listen to but your own heartbeat and a ticking in the wall, your mind will tell you it's a clock. And a clock, at a bedside like that, is only ever counting down. Now we come to the last 3, the ones you can't see at all. Number 8, the smell of flowers where there are none. You're in a room in the dead of winter. Nothing is blooming. Nothing is even in the house. And all at once you catch the smell of flowers, roses or lilies, sweet and strong and out of nowhere. The old belief was that a soul had come near, or that a passing was on its way, and you were smelling the funeral flowers before there was ever a funeral. The scent, they said, arrived ahead of the news. And there was a reading to the flower, too. Roses were said to be a soul that had already crossed over, come back gentle, just to let you know they were at peace. Lilies were the ones that made the old folks nervous, because lilies were the flower of the funeral itself, and to smell them out of season meant one was coming. My grandmother swore she smelled roses in the kitchen the winter her own mother passed, thousands of miles away, in a country she'd left as a girl. She always said her mother had come to say goodbye the only way the distance would allow. Number 9, dreaming your teeth fall out. This one turns up in nearly every family. You dream your teeth are crumbling or falling out one by one into your hand, and the old folks said it meant a death coming in the family. Some even read which relative by which tooth. Now, I'll be honest with you, the way I promised I always would. I have dreamed my teeth fell out the night before every dentist appointment I've ever had, and the night before every holiday dinner with my mother-in-law, and we are all of us still here. So that particular one you might take with a pinch of salt. Thrown over your left shoulder, naturally. Number 10. 3 knocks at the door, and no one there. The death knock. 3 slow knocks, evenly spaced, in the night. You go to the door and there is no one on the other side. No footprints. No car pulling away. Nothing. And the old belief, the one my grandmother feared more than any storm, was that those 3 knocks were death itself come to the door, a warning that it had taken someone bound to that house or was about to. Every town has the story. Mine did too. There was an old woman who lived alone out past the church, and everyone knew the night she heard 3 knocks near midnight, went to her door in her nightgown, and found the porch empty. By morning she was gone. That story got told at every kitchen table I ever sat at growing up, and I watched grown men who laughed off every other sign on this list go quiet when it came around to that one. And I told you I heard it once. I did. 3 knocks, slow, and even on my own door, late, with no one there when I opened it. I stood on that porch a long while in the cold. Nothing came that night. No bad news, thank God. But the first thing I did in the morning was pick up the phone and call my mother, just to hear her voice. She was fine. Everyone was fine. It was probably a branch, my husband said, knocking in the wind. Maybe it was. But I have never once been sorry that it sent me to the phone to hear my mother say hello. And that, I think, is what all of these were really for. So let me ask you, and be honest, has a sign like this ever come to you? A dog howling, a clock stopped, a knock with no one behind it, right before the news arrived. And when it did you let yourself believe it? Or did you call it the wind and go back to bed? Tell me, and especially tell me the one that sent you running to the phone to hear somebody's voice while you still could. Because here's the thing, our grandparents understood that we've half forgotten. They didn't watch for these signs because they were morbid or because they were frightened of dying. They watched because in their day, death came to the house. There was no hospital down the road, no phone call from far away to warn you. The signs were an early word, and an early word gave you time. Time to gather the family in, time to make the peace you'd been putting off, time to get there and hold a hand before it was too late. A howling dog, a stopped clock, 3 knocks at the door. Call it superstition if you like. But I think it was really just a way of paying attention, of keeping watch over the people you loved, so that not one of them would slip away in the night with things left unsaid. We have machines to tell us all of that now. They had the dog and the birds and the quiet of the house. And I can't help thinking they were listening just a little harder than we do. So, what's your count? How many of these have you felt in your own life, whether you admitted it or not? Tell me the sign that came true for you. And tell me the one that didn't. I read every single one. And these I read twice. Knock on wood on your way out.